On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers have now won 8 straight games after a blowout victory over the Orlando Magic. And the best part of this one, they did it without big nights from their star players. We'll talk about that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, 92.3 The Fan, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Cavs daily newsletter. It's your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That is lockedondaily.com. The Cleveland Cavaliers winners again on Tuesday night as they beat the Orlando Magic 122-82. This was an absolutely dominant performance from start to finish. There were maybe a few possessions where you didn't love what the Cavs were doing. That second quarter, certainly not great offensively for them, but this was just about as dominant of a performance as the Cavs have had. And when you consider that they did this same thing to, granted, a better team in the New York Knicks, like that was a much more impressive game last Friday, but that they did this 4 or 5 days ago, that they won that game by 37 and they won this game by 40 in the matter of 5 days. Like that is an incredibly impressive stretch of basketball for one team to play. And the thing that stuck out to me the most about this game is Darius Garland didn't play, still dealing with that sore left hip. I would imagine he's going to be available to play for the Cavs on Friday in Boston, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the week as we get closer to that game. But Garland didn't play. Donovan Mitchell, he played fine. He didn't shoot the ball well. Like, I don't think he had a bad game. I thought he did the other things well, but he was 5 of 12 shooting. He didn't shoot the basketball the level you expect Donovan Mitchell to shoot the basketball most nights. And he finished with 11 points. I thought it was interesting. The Orlando Magic, especially early in this game, were content with trapping him so close to the midcourt line and basically giving the Cavs a 4-on-3 opportunity. And I think once the Cavs adjusted to that, they were fine. But that's something they can't do when Darius Garland is healthy and on the floor. Like, this is not a viable strategy to give Darius Garland a 4-on-3 with Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, and Max Strus as the other 3 guys. Like, that's just not a strategy we could see. And I will talk coming up in segment number 2 about how these two teams could match up if the postseason does pit them against each other in the first round. But Donovan Mitchell only had 11 points. Darius Garland didn't play. Evan Mobley, I thought, played well, but he had 17 points. It's not like he had some big scoring explosion in this one. And the Cavs won by 40. Like, if you were to be told before a game, hey, Darius Garland is not going to play tonight, and Donovan Mitchell is only going to score 11, Evan Mobley is only going to score 17, on most teams, you would be thinking, that team is in trouble. Like, if your star players are not producing 20, 25, 30 points a night in the NBA, it can be difficult to win. The Cavs are not most teams. This is just such a unique, explosive team with what is one of the best. I think this is the best offense I've ever seen with what we were able to see against, what is a really good defense in the Orlando Magic. It's not like they went out there and just smoked the worst defense in basketball. No, they played a really good defense on Tuesday night and just absolutely had their way with them. And I think that is one of the things that's so impressive to me is they did that without Donovan Mitchell needing to be the guy that went out there and just torched them up and down the floor. They came into the night second, Orlando did, in defense. Second in defense. The Cavs just won a game by 40 points against the second best defense in the NBA. Yeah, they only scored 122 because the entire fourth quarter was garbage time. Like, if they needed to go out and score 130 plus points in this game, I'm pretty confident they could have, even with that bad second quarter where they only scored 23 points. But the fact that they're able to get so much production in so many different areas might be the best part about this Cavs team. Yes, Donovan Mitchell is great. Darius Garland is great. Evan Mobley is great and only getting greater every single day, it seems like. But the fact that those three don't need to carry such a heavy burden on a night in, night out basis, where there can be so many different guys. And we talked about this earlier in the season, but there can be so many different guys that can be the leading scorer for the Cavs on any given night. Like Ty Jerome had 20 points. I'll talk about him in a little bit too. He was awesome in this game off the bench. He was the leading scorer. DeAndre Hunter had 17 off the bench. Max Strus had 17. Evan Mobley had 17. They had 4 guys with 15 or more points in this one, but nobody had more than 20. Like, it is such an impressive team effort, and it also makes them so much more difficult to stop. Can Orlando do things like try and trap Donovan Mitchell? Sure. Is that going to maybe throw a wrench in the Cavs' offensive plans for a little bit? Maybe. Like, teams need time to adjust to things, and the Cavs adjusted to that fine, and then they were great after they did that. But there is not a defensive strategy out there that stops a team that has as many different ways to attack as the Cavs do offensively, right? So it's not just that Donovan Mitchell can give you 50, as we saw him do against Orlando in the playoffs last year. It's not just that Evan Mobley can go score 35 or Darius Garland can score 45. It's not just those things. It's that Ty Jerome can score 20. It's that Max Strus can hit 5 threes. It's that DeAndre Hunter not only can go out and score 20 points a night in the NBA, which we've seen that he could do this year earlier in Atlanta, but he doesn't need to rely on other people to get involved. He can kind of go out and do it himself. And yeah, some of the threes that he hit on Tuesday night, of course, were assisted, and he fits really well in the Cavs system. But when things break down, he can put the ball on the floor and go get a bucket. Like, that is one of the things that I don't want to say this Cavs offense was missing, because Karis LeVert did provide that before the trade, but not at this size. Like, it just makes the Cavs so much more difficult to handle. And you saw the number 2 defense in the NBA have no answers for the Cavs. They really had no answers for the Cavs, and a Cavs team that is not at full strength, that was without its most efficient offensive player, a guy that, you know, could be a 50, 40, 90 guy this year in Darius Garland. The fact that they were able to do this without him, without Donovan Mitchell having a big night, like that to me is the whole point of the greatness for the Cavs offensively. It's one thing to have an offense that's great because it's carried by a great player. We've seen that a ton in the NBA. We've seen that in Cleveland a lot historically with LeBron James. Like, when the Cavs were really good offensively with LeBron on the roster, yeah, Kyrie Irving was really good. Kevin Love was really good. Mo Williams had a really nice season back in 2009. Zydrunas Ilgauskas. Like, we can talk about that stuff, but so much of it was carried by LeBron. And this is carried by, and the group is really good. There are a lot of talented guys on this team. I think that there are 3 guys potentially that could one day be Hall of Famers. I don't know. They have long careers to carry out still, but could Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley be in the Hall of Fame one day? Sure. I have no idea if that'll happen, but like, that's not some wild thing to think. But the beauty of this is that those 3 guys are awesome, and the role players fit really, really well together. And despite having 3 awesome guys, the offense is still a group that is better than the sum of its parts. Like, these players fit together so perfectly. They mesh together. They have such great camaraderie that I do think bleeds over to the court. Like, it's not just a thing in the locker room. I think that matters for the way that they play. And the fact that they are so talented, so immensely talented as a group, and they can reach a higher ceiling than just what their talent gives them, particularly on the offensive end of the floor, that to me is what makes this a historically good offense. That to me is what makes this team as good as it is so far this season. And I mean, this is a historically great team. It's not just a historically great offense. This is a historically great basketball team. They're 48-10. They won 48 games all of last year. We'll talk about that coming up a little bit later in the show. But this is a team that they're like this because they're greater than the sum of their parts. It's not just Donovan Mitchell lifting them up. He's capable of doing that, but that's not what it is on a nightly basis. That's not what it was on Tuesday night in Orlando. It's not Darius Garland carrying a team the way that we saw him carry the Cavs team the year they made the play-in before Donovan Mitchell arrived. Is he capable of doing that? Sure, but that's not what this looks like. It's not Evan Mobley putting the Cavs on his back leading them to wins the way that I think he's becoming more and more capable of doing because of how good he is in the leap that he's made this year. Can he do that? Yeah. Is that what we're watching? No. We're watching a complete team effort on both ends of the floor on what has become a pretty regular basis. Yeah, they're going to have off nights. Every team is going to have an off night. Like Sunday's win over Memphis was a really nice win for the Cavs. That was an off night. Like, they did not play their best basketball. I don't think they played their best basketball because Donovan Mitchell didn't shoot the ball well. It's hard for me to say that they did and Darius Garland didn't play. But the fact that they beat a solid team, is Orlando great? No. I don't think Orlando's even good. I think they're a very average NBA team. But the fact that they beat an average NBA team, one that they might see in the first round of the playoffs, 40 points on the road without one of their best players and one of their other best players not having a good night, that speaks to the greatness of this Cavs team. Like, this is, maybe you don't have a ton to learn from this game because we've already known this, but as you watch these games, it's hard for me not to just sit here and have that sort of reinforce that, yeah, maybe they don't win the title this year, but there's absolutely no doubt that this is a team that is more than capable of winning the title. And we see that time and time and time again. Nights like this really just serve as a reminder that, yeah, this is who that Cavs team is. All right, got to talk about Ty Jerome, got to talk about DeAndre Hunter, and we got to talk about what this would look like if this were a playoff matchup, because the Cavs could see Orlando in the first round. So we'll do all that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That's over 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. Investing involves risk. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. That is robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national savings average account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Today's show, again, you can find it anywhere you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review, friend. Tell a friend. So Ty Jerome, leading scorer in this game. He had 20 points, was really fantastic. Made 4 threes, was staring down Orlando's bench as early as the end of the first quarter, early second quarter. Like, he was fantastic in this game. And this is something that is just continuing a trend for him, because anytime Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell, and these games have been rare, not Ty Jerome playing well, Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell not playing. Like, those guys have been very, very available this season. And I think that has been obviously one of the best parts of this for the Cavs this season, is that those guys have, for the most part, stayed healthy. And you hope that continues. But in games where Ty Jerome has an elevated role because one of Darius or Donovan isn't available, Ty has stepped up and seized that opportunity. It feels like every single time. And really, with the exception of the month of December, Ty's been awesome this year. That month, he wasn't that great, but November, he was fantastic. January, he was great. February, he's been phenomenal. I mean, what he did against Memphis on Sunday, and then compared to what he did tonight in Orlando, like, this is a guy that he is, I think, truly, with what he brings offensively. And I know he's not the best defender, but he does do a great job of creating steals. And he is one of those maybe possessions adders, I guess, as Kenny Atkinson called Javonte Green the other day. But he does do a good job of all those things. He is, to me, the perfect example of being a star role player, right? And we've heard this thrown around so many times that NBA teams want role players to be stars in their role. They're not star players, and Ty Jerome is not a star player. but he's a star role player. Like he is, I think at this point, he's become a very high-end role player to where how many third point guards, because that's essentially what he is on this team. He's a third point guard behind Darius, behind Donovan. And in the postseason, they're not going to be minutes when those guys are not on the floor. One of those guys is not on the floor. And I think the minutes Ty plays in the postseason might go down a little bit, particularly if and when the Cavs get to the conference finals against Boston. Any other team, I'm not sure they will. But against Boston, I do think that things could change rotationally. But he has been one of I cannot think of a better season being had by a third point guard this year in the entire NBA. He's been absolutely fantastic. I think he deserves more credit in the 6 Man of the Year race than what he's getting. I know Peyton Pritchard is seemingly running away with it. I'm not sure too if the 65 game rule with minutes applies to 6 Man of the Year or not. I don't know if that's the case, because if that is, I don't know that Ty's going to qualify. Like, I don't know if he's going to play 20 minutes in 65 games. I'm not sure if that's something that will happen, but if he does, I just think that he deserves more love in that conversation than what he's been getting. I think it's hard for me to find a third point guard that's been better than him this year. I think what he's provided off the bench for the Cavs, especially considering the surprise that he's been not only to the Cavs, but to the rest of the league with how good he's been. I think he deserves more love in that conversation. DeAndre Hunter continues to just be great for the Cavs. Like, he was awesome. He made 4 threes in this game. Defensively, he has really helped, I think, in a lot of different areas. And the Cavs have obviously not lost a game since he's been on the roster, because they've now won 8 straight games, and he's played in the last 6 and they've won all 6 of those. But he's been phenomenal. The fact that he can be sort of instant offense for this team, the fact that he can defend at a high level, the fact that he can be a catch and shoot guy, or he can create on his own, he just provides, I think, a little bit of a greater level of flexibility than the Cavs had before on both ends of the floor. They now, I do think, can do a better job of shrinking the floor against opponents. And you saw that, like, watching Orlando play offense on Tuesday night was painful. And I get it. They're not a good offensive basketball team. They're one of the worst offenses in the NBA. They've been just historically, like for the last 10 years, that franchise has been inept offensively, but it looked painful. And I do think that DeAndre deserves some of the credit for that, but also the Cavs defense looks so much better with him on the floor in a way that I don't think it did before the season. That's why I've been tracking what their defensive rating is from the time that they made that trade until the end of the season, because I do think that is one of the most important statistics that we will have from this team this year. And DeAndre Hunter, I don't think the Cavs could be happier with that acquisition. It feels to me, and this trade deadline will always be the one that saw Luka Doncic go from Dallas to Los Angeles, and it should be. He's one of the greatest players in the history of basketball to ever get traded, and DeAndre Hunter is not that. But as far as trades or deals, and it's rare for a team to make a deal like that in season in a year they win the title. But as far as deals that affect the 2025 NBA Finals, I don't think there was a more important one than the Cavs acquiring DeAndre Hunter. And he was awesome again on Tuesday against Orlando. Feels like he's been awesome every time he's been on the floor. And I do wonder too, one of the things that I'm very interested to learn over maybe the next couple of weeks is how much the Cavs view DeAndre Hunter still has to go in terms of his development. And I don't think they will necessarily talk about what he was or wasn't able to accomplish in Atlanta, but I do wonder how much untapped potential they feel like he has, because this is a guy that was the number 4 overall pick. He's got the perfect frame for not just a 3-and-D player, but just like for a dominant wing. He's 6'8", 7'2" wingspan. He's a strong player. I just wonder how much more they think, like, can this guy develop into not just a starter, which I think it's fair to say that on most teams in the NBA, he should and would be a starter. On this one, because Max Strus has been so good with that first 5, maybe DeAndre won't be a starter. I think that's still a little up in the air. But I do wonder how much they think this guy can turn into maybe a fringe all-star. This guy can turn into a fringe star player. Like, I wonder how much that is there. And I would like to learn a little bit more about that, because I do think that is something that's that's worth diving into. Like, just watching him, you kind of come away thinking, man, this guy's really good. But I just wonder, with a different opportunity, maybe a different place in Cleveland compared to Atlanta, and his role in Cleveland right now is just not going to be as big. One day it might be bigger than it was in Atlanta, but right now it's not that. But I do wonder, how much more is there? Like, how is his ceiling higher now long term in Cleveland than it was in Atlanta? That is one of the things I do think will be a fascinating subplot, not to maybe this season with the Cavs, but in seasons moving forward. Because if he progresses and gets so much better, the Cavs are going to just continue to get better and better and better. And we're saying that about a team that's going to win 60 plus games this year, which is really an impressive, remarkable thing to even think about. So the Cavs have equaled their win total from last year, but they also played a team on Tuesday night who they could see in the playoffs this year, that they saw in the postseason last year. We're going to talk about all that next right here on the Locked On Cavs. Today's show brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more points in a game during the 2024-2025 NBA regular season, that's this regular season, the one that we're talking about right now, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. Maybe you wanted to watch a game late and you thought, you know what? Screw putting together lunch for tomorrow. I'm going to stay up late. I'm going to watch basketball tonight. Someone goes off for 50. Your first thought should not just be, wow, what a great game that was to watch. Your first thought should be, I can get $10 off with Dash Pass tomorrow. That's what your first thought should be. So sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50, that is NBA50, from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms do apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said at the top of the show, and if you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. And the Cavs won their 48th game of the season last night by beating the Orlando Magic. Last year, the Cleveland Cavaliers won 48 games. This year, they have won 48 games. As I'm recording this, it is almost February 26th, but it's still February 25th. As you're listening to this, it's most likely February 26th. So the fact that they've done this with 24 games left to play is a remarkable accomplishment. What the Cavs have done this year is wildly impressive. I don't think even the most optimistic people around the Cavs could have predicted this type of performance. You know, I felt like I was a little bit higher on them than consensus. I think before the season, I picked them to finish third in the Eastern Conference. And there were a lot of people that picked them to finish fifth behind not only Boston and New York, but also Philly and Milwaukee. I wasn't buying Philly and Milwaukee. I feel really good about those right now. I didn't necessarily think they'd be better than Boston in the regular season. I didn't think they'd be better than New York in the regular season. But what they've done has been incredibly impressive. The fact that they've won 48 games, the fact that their magic number to clinch a playoff berth is 3, and it's still the month of February, is astounding. They are going to be, of course, the first team in the NBA to clinch a playoff berth. When that does happen, which I would anticipate could maybe be this Sunday against Portland. If not, it should be shortly after that. But this Cavs team just continues to impress. They are one of the best NBA regular season teams of all time. And I do think they should probably be treated more so like that. And maybe having a 40-point win on national television will go a long way towards that. Now, let's talk about what this matchup looks like against Orlando, because as we know, these two teams played in the first round last year. The Cavs beat the Magic in 7 games. If you were living under a rock, it was a rock fight. It was just very ugly basketball for 7 games. It was basically the last team standing. Orlando led by 18 points in game 7. The Cavs came roaring back. And I do wonder, Carter Rodriguez of the Chase Down made a great point. Like, I just wonder where these two teams would be had the Cavs not come back to win that game. So now flash forward 10 months, and the Cavs are the best team in basketball, and Orlando is struggling, partially because they've not been whole from an injury perspective all year. Jalen Suggs is still out. You saw Cole Anthony leave the game. Paolo Banchero missed a bunch of time this year. Franz Wagner missed a bunch of time this year. Like, the Magic are a team that on paper is better than their 29-31 record after the loss of the Cavs. But what the Magic are not is a good matchup against the Cavs in the postseason. Like, if the Cavs played Orlando in the first round of the playoffs, which is a very real possibility. Orlando is a team that I find it difficult to imagine gets out of the play-in, and will Detroit probably come back down to earth a little bit? Yeah, they're not going to win forever the rest of the season, but they'll probably come back down. But I just don't think Orlando is going to have enough to jump up to 6. But if the Cavs see the Magic in the first round, are they going to win every game by 40 points the way they did tonight? No. Are they going to win every game in that series? Maybe not. But I don't view that as a series that would be very stressful for the Cavs, because the Orlando Magic have a very, very, very clear math problem. And we saw in the postseason last year, what was the biggest issue with them? Why did they ultimately lose to the Cavs? Well, because they couldn't shoot. They couldn't make 3-pointers. And now they're the worst shooting team in the NBA. They were abysmal on Tuesday night. They were, I think, 1 of 17 from 3-point range in the second half, or maybe it was 1 of 13 in the second half. Like, it was just in atrocious number. For the game, they were 5 of 28. They shot 17% from 3. And you might think, well, that's just a really bad game. And it is a really bad game. But for the season, they're shooting 30% from deep. It may have ducked under 30% after this game. They also take very few threes. The Cavs didn't get up a ton of threes in this game. They only shot 32. And Orlando does do a good job defensively of taking away 3-pointers. They are one of the lowest teams, or I guess one of the best defenses in terms of taking away threes. Like, opponents for them average among the lowest 3-point attempts in the league. So they did a good job of that. But the Cavs can still shoot the leather off the ball, and the Magic can't. And if these two teams did match up in the postseason, I think it'd be a pretty short series, because Orlando is not only playing against the Cavs, they're playing against math. And I'm sure a lot of you saw the clip that went viral the other night of George Niang, now a member of the Hawks, of course, previously a member of your Cleveland Cavaliers, exchanging some words with Paolo Banchero from the Orlando Magic. And Paolo talking about how he gave the Cavs buckets in the postseason last year. And George's like, you went home. Like, just see where shooting those mid-range jumpers is going to get you. And watching this game Tuesday night, the shot diet for the Orlando Magic was not a very good one. They continued to take really difficult shots. And I do think that the Cavs defense deserves credit for sticking to its game plan and forcing the Magic into some of those difficult shots. But are they all of a sudden in the postseason going to be a team that finds a way to shoot 45 threes in a game and make 17 to 20 of them? No, that's not happening. Like, that is not what this Orlando Magic team is capable of turning into. They're not able to do that. If you want to maybe torture your eyes, pull up Orlando's basketball reference page and look at what their 3-point percentage is for every single player. It's bad. Like, their best 3-point shooter would be the worst one on the Cavs for guys that play, aside from Jared Allen. Like, we're not including him in this. That's where Orlando is. If these two teams matched up in the postseason, would Orlando be physical? Sure. Would this look anything like the series did last April between these two teams? No. It would look much, much different. The Cavs are much, much better. Orlando is a little worse. A lot of that's because of injuries, but they just don't have the offense to keep up. I don't know if there's a team out there that the Cavs should be rooting for to get the 8 seed and face them in the postseason, but it's hard for me to see a lot of series that just would be more decisive offensively than the Cavs against Orlando. And I think that what you saw on Tuesday night might not be an exact replica of what the postseason would look like, but I don't think it'd be very far off. I think that would be a relatively easy series for the Cavs. And I will have this conversation when they play Miami. We'll talk about that. They play Chicago next week. I'll have that same conversation for all the teams that they could play in the 1-8 matchup. And I'm sure a lot of them will go like this because the Cavs are great, and whatever team is in the 8 seed is not going to be great. But I don't even see there's not a roadmap. There's not a road to even have a map to for the Magic to beat the Cavs in the postseason 4 times. Like, that is just not happening. But again, the Cavs look great on Tuesday night. What's going to matter is how do they look on Friday night in Boston? We're going to talk a bunch about that tomorrow and the day after that, because that is, to me, one of the most important games the Cavs will play this entire regular season. But thank you for making Locked On Cavs today your first listen. Thank you for making it your first listen every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs.